Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Jungle Juice podcast. I'm Sam Gormley. He's Mick Nelson. Mick, how's it going? Happy Sunday.
Yeah, happy Sunday. Time change has got me feeling all sorts of ways today. How about yourself?
Yeah, it's weird that, like I got my window right here. It's weird that it's like semi light out right now. That it was when I came in here, just my entire body clock's been thrown off because my body kind of knows about how long it takes, because you just I know on Sunday that at about 7 o'clock or so on, but my body, since everything, it's kind of a mess right now. But we appreciate everyone for taking the time to join us today. Mick, isn't it a little wild that free agency begins? I mean, which I find funny, the tampering window begins tomorrow, and then players can sign on Wednesday. It just seems like it's flown by.
So it actually starts tomorrow. I thought it started, for some reason, I thought it started on Tuesday, but it for sure starts tomorrow, right?
The legal tampering window, which I know I heard Mo Egger on the Paul Dehner Jr.'s new podcast, The Growler. It's no longer that podcast Growling. It's now The Growler. He made the comment saying that legal tampering is very much like legal crime. It's pretty much it's like an oxymoron of sorts. What really is legal tampering? Isn't that really kind of two different things? Is it really tampering if it's legal? Which I just found funny. But yeah, so they can start to contact players tomorrow, but a player can't sign until the new league year officially opens up on Monday afternoon. At the end of the show today, Mick, I am going to have the both of us go on the record, and we're going to name one player each that the Bengals are going to have signed that is not currently a so we can't pick DJ Reader or, we can't pick Devin Harper or something like that. It has to be an outside free agent by the podcast next week. At the end of the show, we're each going to come up with one prediction for who the Bengals will sign to open it up. But today we're all about the defense. All about the defense and some positions that the Bengals could go at, because I find it very interesting right now, and we'll go deeper into it because I think the offense, for the most part, that they're going to sign probably running back. They're probably going to sign a tight end. They're probably going to sign a right tackle. But I think on defense, Mick, there's a lot of, I could see that. I could see them spending big here. I could see them not spending as big here. I just find it really interesting, some of the decisions they have on that side of the ball.
Yeah, for sure. It's not the best of free agent classes. You've heard me say this before, but there's some positions where they definitely that are strong. If they decide that, they didn't like what they saw out of Dax Hill last year, lo and behold, the safety class for free agency is absolutely loaded.
Are there any safeties that are actually on teams anymore? Because it feels like the entire safety class is free agent right now.
Yeah, there's a ton of safety free agents this year. I'm happy. Can't wait to kind of go through them with you. But yeah, I mean, so there's that. But the positions that they absolutely have needs at, which are nose tackle, right tackle, maybe running back, like you said. It's the market's not nearly as great at those types of positions that they absolutely have needs for. So, yeah, it's going to be kind of interesting to see where they spend, how much they spend, what type of players they want on the team. They typically like to go with younger guys that are coming off of their first contract. So that'll just be really interesting to see what happens. And yeah, I'm interested to see who your on the record guy is at the end of the show here.
You want me to be honest? What? I still don't know who it's going to be yet.
I don't know either. I'm going to have to take a look at my
I'm kind of throwing it both on both of us. I was thinking literally about 10 minutes before the show, I was like, you know what? That'd be kind of fun to go on the record and predict a guy. It could be offense or defense. But before we go into the defensive, there are a couple of news headlines that I think we want to talk about as we open up the show today. Remember to follow us on all of our social media platforms. We're on Facebook. We are on Twitter. We are on YouTube. You can subscribe, follow, whatever it is that you do on each of those platforms. You can do that on all of those spots. We invite you to be sure to do that. And then we're also on your favorite podcasting platform, Spotify, iTunes, all of it we have for you to join and re-listen to the show that way as well. But make a couple of the news headlines. Yesterday or Friday, I think it was yesterday morning, it came out that Cody Ford had been re-signed to a 1-year deal as technically being the first Bengals re-signing, not counting T. Higgins of getting the franchise tag, because I think that was everybody expected that to happen. But I think Cody Ford is a good piece to add back to a Bengals offensive line that the depth, I think, is a big question.
Yeah, I think it was a really good signing from the front office to extend Cody Ford. They only signed him to a 1-year extension, right? Or was it
correct? Correct. Just a 1-year deal, which is probably just to continue to see what you can't do on hopefully finding somebody in the draft to kind of take that role into the future. But I think for right now, Cody Ford is somebody that the Bengals, you saw, I mean, he became the first tackle off the bench last year, which kind of surprised me. I think I remember when, I guess, was it, there was the moment late in the season, and now I'm trying to remember the game. It was a home game where either Jonah had to leave for a couple of plays or it was somebody had to leave, and Cody Ford was the first guy that came off the bench. Oh, it was Orlando Brown.
It was OBJ, yeah.
I don't remember what game it was, and Cody Ford came off the bench, and I think everybody was like, oh, interesting. I think everyone was expecting it to be Jackson Carman, but I think that also says a lot about where Jackson Carman sits in the franchise.
Yeah, I mean, I think Cody Ford's probably, he was. I wasn't entirely surprised when it happened, though. I think Cody Ford was probably the most reliable guy on that group. Had starting experience in Buffalo. Wasn't the greatest. It wasn't, I guess, necessarily good, but he wasn't terrible when he played for Buffalo either. So, I mean, yeah, I'm happy with the signing. All the TT lovers are also happy with the signing. And yeah, I mean, it's not like he's going to be your Jonah Williams replacement, but it's good to have him back as your swing tackle.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. The other news that came out, the Bengals are getting 2 compensatory picks in the upcoming draft, both of them 6th round, sorry.
Okay.
Pick 208 and 214 will be the Bengals. That is for losing Von Bell and Samaje Perine. The deals when they lost 2 other players. They lost Jesse Bates, and they also lost, and now, of course, if I would have written it, Hayden Hurst. Those were canceled out via signing Orlando Brown and Nick Scott.
Yeah, so, I don't know where the logic is with the Nick Scott. I guess it's based off of percentage of snaps played, right? Is that what?
Yes. Okay. And technically, he did start 7 games.
Yeah, they should do it based off of like how terrible they are or not terrible they are.
I feel like the Bengals should have gotten like a 1st-round pick for having to deal with.
We should have gotten like a 3rd for the Nick Scott
debacle.
And then at least like a 5th for OBJ, because it wasn't like OBJ was that great last year. So
that pick 208 is the top of the compensatory picks in the 6th round. So that means that they were 1 spot away from being able to jump another, 32 spots and be in the back end of the 5th round, which does
story of our lives right there.
Yes. So you were 1 pick away from having the potential, because back end of the 5th, you never know what you might be able to get. But hey, I think once you get into 5th, 6th, and 7th round anyways, you're taking lottery tickets.
Yeah. I mean, you're pretty much just taking depth pieces and special team players at that point.
Correct. So who knows how much of a difference that'll actually be, especially because what the Bengals love to do in the draft more than anybody is trade back, add more picks. So and then in that realm, it might end up just canceling out anyways. And then the other big news of the week, Mick, Hayden Hurst and CJ Uzomah were both released by their respective teams. I think we talked about offensive free agents last week, so I think it's important for us at least to talk about offensive free agents and just go back to the tight end market. Reunion? I think we can both agree CJ Uzomah, there's no shot.
Yeah, I don't think that's happening.
CJ's 31.
Yeah, I don't even know if he'll get re-signed at all by anybody. He might be done. His career might be over. He's been a pretty mediocre tight end most of his career. He's on the wrong side of 30. signed for good money with the Jets and did nothing for him. Yeah, I'm not sure if a team is really going to want to. Maybe they'll sign him to the vet, the league minimum. Some team might do it, but I don't think the Bengals should touch that at all. And I'm not really too bullish on Hayden Hurst, just given his whole injury situation. And then also he's on the older side as well. Is he also on the other side of 30? I do not know.
No, I think he's only. Let's see here. I'm going to look this up here as I'm talking. If Mick, if we were good at our jobs, we would have actually known this. He is 30. So
he is 30.
He is 30.
I don't.
In fact, he'll be 31 game one of the season. His birthday is August the 24th.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want either of them. So I think you got to get younger at the position. We talked about other tight ends. Unfortunately, one of them signed last week. Dalton Schultz signed with the Texans last week, or re-signed with the Texans last week. So he's off the market. But you got other people. You got Noah Fant. You got Colby Parkinson. You've got a couple of other names on that list.
Your favorite, Mike Gesicki?
No.
That's going to be my pick at the end of this. I'm just going to say Bengals sign him just because if we're being real, the last tight end that you did get very mad at them signing wasn't terrible.
Which one did I get mad at?
Hayden Hurst. You were not on team Hayden Hurst.
I was not on team Hayden Hurst. Yeah, that is true.
So maybe it just takes you being mad at a free agency signing for them to be good. But then again, you weren't necessarily thrilled with Irv Smith either. So maybe that doesn't end up working. So I guess my philosophy was thwarted right away. Well, it was fun while it lasted. How about we jump into some defensive free agents and potential targets for the Cincinnati Bengals? Because as we talked about, Mick, there's some really interesting things with this, and I think some interesting questions that will need to be answered before you then will sign some of these free agents. And I'd hope that the Bengals have already answered these questions internally. Like we talked about last week, the big question on the offense is Joe Mixon. That question, I would hope, has been answered by now for the Cincinnati Bengals, even if obviously they haven't made a move for it. I expect that decision has at least been made. Right now, though, there's the question you mentioned, safety. We'll come back to that, but I think it's best to start at the biggest hole on the defense, and that's the defensive line.
Yeah, let's do it. This D tackle class for the free agency period is not great. Now, I guess it's not great for younger defensive tackles. Now, there's some older options available, but we all know that the Bengals don't necessarily like signing older players to big contracts. I think that they have a little bit of buyer's remorse from the Carlos Dunlap and Geno Atkins extensions, the second ones, not the first extensions that they got, but the second ones, where they didn't really provide much value and were getting paid a lot of money. But it seems like that just this defensive tackle class, the top 3 or 4 defensive tackles are all on the other side of 30, other than Christian Wilkins, who is either 28 or 29.
He's 28.
28.
Yeah.
So, and then he's probably priced out as well, I would think.
Because I think it's important for us to start by talking that you had 2 big interior defensive linemen. Arguably, I think an argument could be made the 2 biggest ones that were technically on the market, or 2 of the top couple. Chris Jones signed a massive extension yesterday with the Chiefs, which did that surprise you? Like that one, I just didn't see him re-signing. Then again, I have not gone all the way into the Chiefs cap situation, but was that not kind of a surprise?
That was a little bit of a surprise, but also, I mean, I would say interior defensive line is one of the more highly valued positions in the league. And we've seen firsthand of how much of a game wrecker he is on the defensive side of the ball. So I feel like that was a guy that the Chiefs couldn't afford to lose. 5 years, $95 million. I mean, it's a good chunk of money right there too. I mean, that's almost 20 million APY. I'm trying to see where that would place amongst all.
And then while you're doing that, the other big one that signed was on Friday. That was Justin Madubuike back with the Ravens. Now he's very much, he's in his mid-20s. He's very much in the heat of his prime. I mean, it's hard to not call Chris Jones still playing in his prime when he's still being Chris Jones. But still, Matabike still, I mean, he could have 10 years left in his career. Chris Jones probably got 3, 4, 5 maybe left of great football left, being on the other side of 30. But all of those numbers are extremely high because Christian Wilkins has been a name that I've had an eye on for a while, just because, you know, you think about the teams that have won Super Bowls over the last couple of years. They've had a game wrecker in the middle. And I know that you say, well, that's just like 2 teams, Aaron Donald, Chris Jones. You know, those guys obviously don't grow on trees, but those players in the interior change games. And that's why I'm thinking that the Bengals have not had a guy like that really in 10 years. Because, yes, they had Geno, but Geno wasn't elite. And it's been about 10. 15 was probably the last, like, elite Geno Atkins year, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I would say, well, I'd have to pull up the grading.
Yeah, but still,
yeah, I mean,
give or take.
It's
been a
Geno,
while.
I mean, you don't think, I mean, I'd say DJ was.
Well, I'm saying more in the, because I'm talking more the pass rush rate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still say DJ wasn't like a sack artist by any means. He graded very well in pass rush every year that he was in Cincinnati. Now, the issue with DJ Reader was his durability. If you pull up the amount of games he played for 4 seasons and played in a total of 44 games. That's an average of 11 games a season. That means he was essentially missing a month each year, on average. Now, he had a couple of years where, last year he played 14 games, 2021 he played 15, but he only played 10 in 22, only played 5 in 2020. I mean, so I think we'd be having, I think DJ would be in that elite conversation. I mean, he's been a top 10 rated interior defensive lineman per PFF for the past few years now. So yeah, but I do agree. You definitely want a game wrecker on the interior, but the question is at what cost do you want that? We don't know when Christian Wilkins is, going to start declining. I know I think this would be his second contract, but he came into the NFL at an older age. He's 28. He's going to be signing, a 4-year deal probably, or a 3 or 4-year deal. He's going to be playing into his 30s. I don't know. I'm just not too big of a fan of the Wilkins signing.
He is coming off his best year of his career.
He is.
Which he had career highs in pass rush win rate, pressure rate, sacks, quarterback hits, pressures, and so on. All of those were career highs. Now, that is also the question, is that I'm in a contract year, or is that I am turning into being an elite player?
And I'm going to add on to that. How much of that is Vic Fangio was my defensive coordinator?
Yeah. And that's another thing. And those are the questions the Bengals are asking. So Spot Rack has him at 20.2. Now, my assumption is that number is going to shoot up now based on the Chris Jones and the Matabike signings.
Matabike is getting paid on average $25 million a season. The Ravens vastly overpaid for that. And yeah, that's going to screw up the D tackle market for these top end guys. I'm in a complete agreement with you on that. Also, the Chris Jones deal is kind of a bargain. And I wonder, it's probably because his age is a factor in this, but $19.5 million a year, that is good for like 9th in interior defensive linemen. DeForest Buckner, Javon Hargrave, Dexter Lawrence, Deron Payne, Jeffrey Simmons, Quinnen Williams, Justin Matabike, and Aaron Donald are all getting paid more on average per year. So I honestly, that might be a solid A or to A+ contract signing for the Chiefs there.
A couple other names that stand out. You mentioned DJ Reader. And to me, the Bengals make a lot of sense for DJ Reader, and DJ Reader makes a lot of sense for the Bengals. But I think, and I can say this, it's not like I can't imagine for us to pick him in our little game that we're going to play here. DJ Reader is not going to be re-signed anytime soon. And nor do I expect him to go to any team probably relatively soon, because a team's going to want to see how he can recover from his second quad injury in, 4 years?
Yeah.
And that is a question. And another thing with DJ Reader is he's almost 30. Like, at what point is that too much of concern? Injury history, you're almost 30. And that's where I think that you could very much see the Bengals wait and maybe sign him. He could be like a May the 1st signing.
Yeah. I'm interested to see if another team tries to hop on it just because of how productive he has been when he has been on the field. And how desperate a team is to find some interior defensive line help or to find a game changer in the interior. And I know he's not in the Chris Jones category, but I think he is a game changer. I mean, we saw how bad the defense looked without DJ Reader. Other teams definitely took note of that as well. So, yeah.
Another name that if the Bengals don't re-sign DJ Reader, and we mentioned that 30-year mark and players over 30, here's a name for you that is somebody decently over 30, but is coming off a great PFF grade season with a PFF grade of 82.9, and that's Daquan Jones.
Yep.
$6.8 million. He's 32.
And he's been fairly durable throughout his career. I know he did miss a good chunk of games this season, but that was the first time he's ever missed
really any time.
Now, 33 years old. I don't know if the Bengals would be going for that. If that were the case, they might as well just go ahead and re-sign DJ Reader. But yeah, I mean, he has been a fairly durable, a very solid defensive tackle. Would fill the nose tackle position really well. I do like Daquan Jones a lot.
To me, here's the one thing with Daquan Jones, and I think, he'll be 32. He'll be 33 in late December. He, to me, is the epitome of a guy that the Bengals could get that would be a quote-unquote ring chaser.
The Carlos Dansby of 2024.
Yeah, just somebody who is on the back end of their career, and he's going to want to sign with somebody that could potentially give him a chance to win a title so he can go out on top.
Yeah.
And that's where I think he could fit. But I also think that the nose tackle position is almost one that you can play a little older.
Which is kind of crazy, too. I mean, these guys are bigger guys. You'd think they'd be more susceptible to injury.
But you see a lot of older guys still stick around.
Yeah, you do.
Is Domata Peko doing anything?
He
had lost a lot of weight when he was the ruler of the jungle earlier this season.
Well, yeah, it's like you see that with every offensive lineman, defensive lineman. They don't have to bulk up anymore, and they would rather be healthier. So, yeah. So there's those are two really solid names at D tackle. If I'm the Bengals front office, I'm kind of thinking, let's just find a stopgap guy, potentially a depth piece, but somebody that is younger, that they could sign, or that could be, that could start in place of DJ Reader if they re-sign DJ Reader, or until he's back from his quad injury. And there's a couple of names of note here. First one I have is Bilal Nichols, defensive tackle from Vegas. Didn't come off of a very good year last year, but he's had good seasons before in Chicago in 2018 and 2020. I think he could be a pretty good depth piece. Other name I like, Derek Nottie from Kansas City, who was, I think, probably top half of the league nose tackle up until a couple of years ago. And then I don't know why, but he just randomly started falling off. Then another name I like is Greg Gaines, defensive tackle from Tampa Bay. He was with the Rams for his rookie contract, played really well, was one of the wreckers against us in the Super Bowl. I think he could be a really good depth piece or, stopgap starter for a year.
On the 3-tech position, too, kind of going in that defensive line realm, one that I think is not necessarily that I'm on the team that they should sign, but wouldn't surprise me, is Tier Tart. from the Titans/Texans. And the biggest reason for that is they already tried to claim him once. Now, that was in more of a realm of, the question is was that in the realm of desperation, or was that in the realm of we actually like that guy, or was it a little bit of both? And how much of it being the both, if you get what I'm saying with that?
Yeah, if we're putting percentages, because this was right after the DJ injury, right?
Correct.
I would say 85% desperation, 15% we like this guy.
And who knows? If it's closer to 50-50, he very well could be one of those guys that it signs within the first 24 hours.
Maybe.
Because they've done their work on him.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also know that if there's one thing that Joe Burrow knows a lot about, it's the interior of the Tennessee defensive line.
Yeah.
So,
we can't pretend like he was at Tennessee for I think he was literally at Tennessee for half of it. He wasn't. He was San Fran beforehand.
See, now that you're saying this, I'm trying to see what it is. No, he was with the Titans from 2020 to 2023.
Okay.
Yeah, I was thinking. So he played with the Titans in his career. His career stats aren't necessarily great. I mean, 2.5 career sacks, 1 fumble recovery, 7 pass deflections, and an interception as well. Pride of Florida International.
FIU.
Boo.
T.Y. Hilton went there.
There you go.
Are they still in the CUSA, or are they in the American now?
They are the one of the ones that have stayed with my Hilltoppers in there. He was an undrafted guy back in 2020. I don't know. That's just a name that I think it wouldn't shock me if he is somebody that the Bengals sign early, because it's a position that they need. It's somebody that they at least have shown some interest in, and go from there.
All right. You got edge
Did
rusher?
You have any more on the edge? I didn't really have anybody.
I didn't really have anybody either.
I don't expect them. I think if you're going to see an edge, it's going to be a draft pick. Like, you'll see them. They love going 5th, 6th, 7th round edge.
Well, and they're not losing anybody on the edge this year either, I don't believe.
No. So I'd be shocked. I mean, I guess I wouldn't be shocked if they signed somebody edge, but I feel like it'll be like the guy that they signed. He played at Ohio, and he didn't end up making the team because he got hurt in training camp this past year. Now his name escapes me. Terrell Basham, is that a name?
Oh yeah, it is Terrell Basham, 3rd round pick. Played with Buffalo.
I think that's right. Out of Ohio, I think, if my memory's right.
Yeah, you went to OU, yeah.
That would be a guy that I could see, like somebody in that realm of, he's a depth piece. Maybe he's had some injury history. He's not going to cost a lot of money, and he'd be competing as like the 51st man on the roster. I don't expect them to spend any money at defensive end.
Yeah, and I think that's also part of the reason why they drafted Myles Murphy last year too. They've got plenty of depth at the edge rusher position. So I think we can move on from that. I didn't really have anybody at linebacker.
The only one that, because I don't expect them to make any moves, because I expect them to bring back Marcus Bailey, Joe Bacci, maybe ADG. But if they let ADG walk, I see them more than likely taking that up in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
The one name that, at least when I was looking at free agents, make me go, oh, and the money is there for $4.8 million, Tyrell Dodson, number 1 rated PFF linebacker last season.
He's valued at $4.8 million.
That's what Spot Rack had him at. And that's where I was like, if I could get him for that, if I could get him for that, I'm saying yes, absolutely.
There's no way he signs for only $5 million.
I don't disagree, but that's what Spot Rack had it at, and that's where I was like, well, I mean, if that's what we're headed for, then I'm not gonna.
You don't think there's gonna be an LSU reunion, bringing Patrick Queen in from Baltimore?
Listen, I wouldn't hate it, but I think price wise,
I don't see them doing that.
No. Now, if Jermaine Pratt would have left last year, maybe,
yeah, because it's not like linebackers like a crazy expensive position to pay for. I mean,
no.
OTC or over the cap has him valued at 13 million a year. I would assume Spot Rack probably has him valued a little bit higher, but that would be on the top end of linebackers. They just re-signed Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt. I don't think that they didn't have really good years last year or this past season, but I don't think it was necessarily their fault. I think that the turnover at safety had more to do with that than their actual play. Just with the whole communication with those guys, I think that exposed them a lot more in coverage than what they were the past couple of seasons beforehand.
Spot Rack has him at 18.5.
Interesting. So it's probably more like 20 something.
Yeah, no. Bengals are not signing Patrick Queen for that much. I can tell you that right now. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. So I guess linebacker-wise, we can move on. There's not really a whole lot. I think you could see them sign a guy in the Joe Bocci realm, where it's a guy that's going to cost him, $2 million. Like, that probably we can't predict because there's so many free agent linebackers out there. I just don't expect them to really make any moves. But at corner, I'd be surprised if they don't come away with this year's Chidobe Awuzie. And I think that's really the best way to describe it is you're trying to find somebody in case DJ Turner sucks again.
Who's this year's Chidobe Awuzie? There's only one name that comes to mind for me.
Okay, drop it.
Sean Murphy-Bunting.
That was one I was looking at.
Corner from Tampa Bay, and then went to Tennessee last year. He had a down season with Tennessee, but I thought he was a really solid and reliable starting corner when he was at Tampa. Obviously, we saw, how well he played in the playoffs, especially in the year that they won the Super Bowl. 2 years ago, 2022, his yards per reception given up, he was 14th in the league out of, a ton of corners and like over 100 corners. So, probably 80th something percentile in that. He's the top half in the league in passer rating given up last year. Middle in the pack of forced incompletion rate. I wonder how much of his down year had to do with, just going to a new team, a new scheme, and it just didn't work out. But yeah, I think that we've seen, just like with Cheeto, when he signed with us a few years ago, and he had a down year in Dallas. I mean, we saw him play really solidly at corner for Dallas. So I think that he would be the prime candidate to be this year's Cheeto.
No, I think that's a good name to bring. A couple that I was looking at, to me, nobody really jumped up. You have Trey Herndon from the Jags.
Yeah.
36 rated corner by PFF. Because I'm trying to find in that realm of your next, because you're not going to see them drop big money on a big time corner.
Yeah. One name I really like, Isaac Yiadom, corner from New Orleans. Breakout season last year. He's kind of jumped around the league his entire career, but he's young. Had an ADOT, average depth of target of 12.5 yards, which is kind of on the higher end, but his yards per reception given up was only 13.1. So there's only a 0.6 yardage differential between those two. So that tells me that he's fairly decent in coverage, or at least he was last year. He was tops in the league in forced incompletion rate at 30% last year among qualifying cornerbacks. That is an insane. That's an insane rate. Passer rating given up 84.4, top 40 of cornerbacks. The one caveat with Isaac Yiadom is that he is not the greatest of tacklers. And I wonder if that is something that would turn Lou off immediately or not.
They already have some poor tackling in that secondary.
They do.
There's a safety that I'm going to be bringing up. That's a big problem as well, and could be the reason why the Bengals wanted to take him, but we'll come back to that. Keyshawn Nixon from the Packers.
Be a good kick returner, too.
Special teams is the main reason I brought it up, is because for one, Darren Simmons loves a guy that can play special teams as well, and Darren Simmons' voice means a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that would be one just to give something to that kick return game too. because
Oh,
I mean,
go
yeah,
ahead.
Charlie Jones was fine on punts, but I mean, when's the last? I mean, Brandon Wilson, what, 5 years ago was the last time? I guess was it 2020 that he had the big year that he was All Pro.
I think it's 2019.
I can't remember whether it was 2019 or 2020 for Brandon Wilson. That's the last time we had a kick returner that was, if we're being honest, worth anything. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, Travion Williams, fine. Hey, Rick, appreciate you joining us today. He brings up here on corners as well, Fuller or Howard. Xavier Howard's an interesting one.
Yeah, I think
he's plus 30.
I think that's why I did not list him here is the age. But yeah, I mean, Xavier Howard had a really good year last year too. Now, how much of that was Vic Fangio though as well? That's another question to bring up.
Here's the one thing that I think that would be interesting for the Bengals is you look at the secondary. What's the one constant for the Bengals secondary, really? Young. You know, CTB. Versatile. Do you bring in a guy like a Xavier Howard who's been around a long time? I'm just playing like the devil's advocate here to mentor some of these guys.
He's seen a lot. If they wanted to do that, they would have done it already. I mean, I guess Cheeto was kind of that mentor role towards the end of his stint in Cincinnati, but I don't know. I think they would have tried that out already if they. And
maybe they've realized it more now. And I don't know. Just the questions that are interesting to ask. And then the other guy that I had that was, I don't know how much of it because he might be too much of an interior guy, but was bumped out to the outside as well last year was Adoree Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the what's that?
Is he over 30?
28. He's 28. Right now, the Bengals' question is do they have too many really interior corners on their team? Because I know that there's been some even rumbling of whether DJ Turner might be better suited as an inside slot corner. And then you've got Dax Hill, which we'll come back to here in a little bit, that might just be a slot corner as well. Do you really need to sign a guy like Jackson, who very well could be more suited as a slot corner as well? But the one thing to Jackson is he does bring some versatility in that position, which the Bengals, as you just touched on, love in their secondary.
Yeah. Another name I want to bring up, Mr. I like to encroach on field goal kicks. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Who?
Tavier Thomas from Houston.
Okay.
I don't know if you remember that from the Houston game. He was the defense, or he was the gunner, I guess, or I don't know if it's a gunner. The guy that, tries to block field goals that, jumped off sides like 3 or 4 times while we were trying to kick one. When we were playing Houston, or was it? Maybe it was a different game. Now that I'm thinking, it was a different game. I think it wasn't the game against the Bengals, but there was one game he played where he did that constantly. But he was kind of more of a depth piece at corner for Houston. But I think that's a role that he could provide in Cincy if they decide to put all their chips into DJ Turner starting. I think he would be an okay insurance policy. Top 10 in the league in average depth of target, 34th in yards per reception. Both of those are well within the top half of the league, and he is a very good tackler, and I think that's something Lou's going to covet. He was 14th in total tackling stops per PFF and ranked 120th in total coverage snaps. So if that provides any reference there, he's a really good tackler.
And it's something that you need in that position. Are those all your corners, or do you have any more, or do you want to jump into some safeties here?
Let's do some safeties here.
Because I think, you have that discussion of right now with Dax Hill. And I know I asked the question is, can you afford, or can the Bengals afford to put all of their chips into, and here, let's just quickly go to this question here from Mick before I finish my points is, are you totally against any cornerback over 30? Just thinking of mentorship and experience.
I don't know if I'm necessarily against it, but I'm trying to go with what the Bengals historically have done over the past few seasons of the Zach Taylor era. You don't really see them signing especially older defensive backs, I don't think. Yeah, you've seen a Riley Reef signing. Yeah, you've seen a Josh Bynes signing here and there. I'm not, yeah, so I'm not saying I'm technically against it, but I think the Bengals try to avoid that as much as they can.
Yeah, I agree with you there. To the Dax Hill thing is I don't know how much the Bengals can put faith in and I'm just going to call it a sophomore leap because technically it is his sophomore, his second season because really he redshirted his first year as a starter. Can the Bengals afford to put hope that he can figure it out? And I think we both can agree in saying no. They have to have a backup plan.
Yeah. I yeah, I don't really see.
And by that backup plan, I know you are signing Nick Scott to a long-term extension, right?
Yep, that was the one I was going for. We're going Nick Scott. Sign him for Jesse Bates money.
Along with bring back Reggie Nilsson.
Yeah, he was only the worst rated safety of last season per PFF. So I mean, it can only get better. I think.
What was his grade?
Like a 40
okay,
something.
I was surprised it's even that high.
It was pretty bad.
I was gonna say don't say it could get much worse, but I think it could. So I don't even want to even imagine that. Who is somebody that you could see the Bengals taking as in that realm to either start in place of Dax Hill, compete with Dax Hill, or push Dax Hill?
I don't know if I really picked any safeties that could push Dax Hill. I was more looking for safeties that could replace Dax Hill. And maybe you groom Dax Hill to replace Mike Hilton after next year as the slot corner because Mike's in his last year, I believe, next season. Oh, hey, Riley. Good seeing you comment there. So names I really like. And also I wonder if the Bengals have a little bit of regret not extending Jesse Bates. Just given how the safety play was for a good chunk of last year. I wonder if they do try to correct themselves here by signing like a Xavier McKinney from the Giants, who had he's been solid throughout his entire career, but he had a big leap last year in terms of how incredible he was, I guess. I don't know. So anyways, gave up a passer rating of 52.1, which is second amongst safeties. Was one of the lone bright spots on a very lackluster Giants defense. He was a trade candidate that I really wanted the Bengals to explore last season. But I think that a duo of him and Jordan Battle would probably be even better than Jesse Bates and Von Bell. And I think you got to get the safety room to get back to at least that Jesse Vaughn caliber of play.
Yeah, Xavier McKinney would be a great signing. I mean, you know me, Mick. A couple of weeks ago, it might have been last week that I made my Christmas wish list, my plea, my begging of Antoine Winfield, and then the Bucs just had to go and franchise tag him. Which again,
they weren't letting that guy go.
nor should they. No. I even made a comment saying, "Yes, I realize it wasn't going to happen, but let me dream." And it was fun to dream about for at least like an hour. And then I realized that, there was no shot of it actually happening. A guy that I had on my list, and it was somebody that I mentioned just a few moments ago when you were talking about guys that struggle tackling. This is a downside to this guy. Geno Stone from the Ravens.
I'm not too big on Geno Stone.
19% missed tackle rate. Like, to put things into perspective, you just mentioned Xavier McKinney, 7.8% for him. I mean, 19%, that's high. Especially when you go at what was one of the big reasons that Nick Scott failed. Missed tackles.
Which was crazy because that was supposed to be Nick Scott's strong suit, right? He was supposed to be the really good run defending, tackling safety who couldn't cover anything.
So then maybe you sign the guy that can't tackle, and maybe he'll actually tackle? Is that how it works? Maybe?
Sure.
But I mean, Geno Stone came in and played well for the Ravens last year, and he was caught behind, Kyle Hamilton and so on, who maybe next to Antoine Winfield might be my next biggest dream of adding to the Bengals defense. Again, I realize it's not happening. Ravens are smart enough to not let him out the door. But he's at least a guy that wouldn't shock me, because then also you bring up the point that he very well could be the main reasons that the Ravens beat the Bengals week 2.
Yeah.
He had the interception of Burrow in the red zone where he made a great play. He doesn't intercept that ball, to the Bengals win that game. Again, I know, ips, so on, but still, that probably had to have at least made a market ahead of the Bengals front office. And that's a name that I think it wouldn't shock me to be, because like Xavier McKinney, Geno Stone is not even 25 yet. Xavier McKinney is 24 and a half. They're both really young. I would be happy. I'd be happier with McKinney, but Stone was a guy that at least stood out to me.
Yeah. Another name that stood out to me, Cameron Curl, safety from Washington, has been just a very solid, top half of the league starting safety. Kind of reminds me of a Von Bell. 4th and run stops among safeties last year. And I guess if they decide Jordan Battle is better in the free safety realm, I think that he would be a really good strong safety. So that's another one. Alohi Gilman, breakout from the Chargers.
You just took the next name off my list. 7th best rated safety.
Yes.
By PFF.
Which is crazy, because he wasn't very good up until last year. So, but he was a breakout candidate, ranked 5th amongst safeties in coverage grade. Even though he only had 2 interceptions, he forced 7 through his coverage, which interceptions that other people got,
which counts just the same.
I think it does as well. His pass rating when targeted, it's 96.7. It's about the middle of the pack in terms of that. Ranked 5th in missed tackle percentage, so he's a really good tackler. His average depth of target, 12.1 yards. Average per reception, 13.3 yards. Again, kind of just proves that he's, 1, good at tackling, and 2, his coverage is pretty sound. And to put that in perspective, you look at Dax Hill's average depth of target's 9.2 yards, but his average per reception giving up is 14.3 yards. That is a 5.1 yard swing right there between those two numbers. And I feel like you got to have somebody that shores that up a little bit.
How do we feel about Darnell Savage?
I didn't really do too much research onto him, but I do like Darnell Savage. I think he's a very solid corner.
From the Packers, 15th rated safety via PFF last year. He's another one of those guys, and I like these. These guys that we're all mentioning, Savage, 26, Gilman, 26, Stone, 24, McKinney, 24. They're all going to bring a lot of youth in there, but the biggest thing with that is that they're bringing youth along with experience. And I talk a lot about this. You can't coach somebody to have more experience. You can't.
No.
You have to learn that.
Yeah.
And that is where I think it would be very, very interesting to see how the Bengals could take some of those experience. Yeah.
And I just feel like kind of the writing's on the wall with the safety position, right? Because of how loaded the safety class here is, I think you're going to find somebody for fairly good value just because, it's not like there's one to, maybe or 2 or 3 safeties that are really good, and then the rest of the class is garbage. Those guys are signing for top tier money, so I feel like you could find a contract that doesn't necessarily break the bank, kind of like a Cheeto-esque contract signing.
One of the other names that came up, you had a couple free safeties that were cut earlier this week. I think we should at least mention.
Or all of them Buffalo Bills?
Pretty much. You Justin Simmons, though.
Okay.
From Denver. Now, biggest thing with Justin Simmons, Mick, what have we talked I think we've mentioned it, both of us, at least 74 times over the past couple of weeks. What's the biggest thing with Justin Simmons? He is over 30.
Yeah.
But he's been really good. Still. He would bring experience to the secondary. Could you see the Bengals making that move?
Probably not. I don't know. I just don't. They have a clear philosophy at this point of not signing older players. I mean, as much as I like Justin Simmons and how good of a safety he's been, that's just not the type of contract the Bengals like to go for.
Yeah, and I just found it when it got released immediately. He is always one of those names that people go when I love when anybody gets cut on social media. You always see the Bengals should sign this guy. And 75% of the time, maybe probably higher percentage than that, most of it's like, no, why would they want to sign that guy? He was cut for a reason. Justin Simmons, at least to me, fits in the realm of, well, that at least makes sense. But then again, if you get what I'm saying with that.
Yeah.
He at least would be a fit that it could have. I don't know that you see them go in the draft here, though, for a safety.
I mean, I think we see them go for safety in the draft if they don't sign anybody.
But I think, and yes, because you got to find somebody. More than likely, Nick Scott is going to be cut. So you're going to need somebody. You have Tyson Anderson coming back. You've got Jordan Battle. You've got Dax Hill. Dax Hill's not going anywhere. Now, whether he's a safety or a corner, now that's a question and a discussion that we very much could have. But still, I find the safety market is going to be very interesting because it would not shock me if this is their Orlando Brown signing.
Yeah.
And from last year, where they go and they find Justin Simmons and they go out there and they just blow it up and or sign top level safety and let's go. And then it wouldn't shock me if they sign Geno Stone for a cheap deal or somebody in that realm of in there to compete. I find it very interesting. To me, it's maybe the most interesting position for the Bengals in free agency, both offense or defense this year.
Yeah, it's definitely the best position group of the free agent class this season.
Yes. Right there with running back, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think we're going to see many running back signings. I feel like all of them are going to hold out.
Yes.
Maybe Saquon doesn't hold out, but that's about it. Or maybe Josh Jacobs doesn't hold out, but all those other guys, I mean, I feel like we see this every year where you see top tier running backs just hit the free agent market. They're all like 27, 28 years old and nobody wants to sign them for the money that they want.
It's not in defensive realm, but we didn't touch on it last week. Do the Bengals sign a punter?
I think if they do, it's Tommy Townsend.
He makes the most sense.
Well, yeah, he was him. Yeah, okay. Former
Florida connection. Yep. He was probably McPherson's holder at Florida, I would assume.
Yep.
He's been good for a consistent team. I think it makes sense.
Yeah,
I know I mentioned
moved on. Well, I guess he was a free agent anyways, right? They
correct.
Didn't cut him. Yeah.
Correct. He was a free agent anyways, and they're trying to save money where they can, which makes sense. And then I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I would just love Rigoberto Sanchez just for the reason of being able to have our boy and our section yell. I hope he just hates all punters, and I just want to hear him yell at Rigoberto, you stink. Just for that reason alone. And I just hope he's just the punter hater. You know exactly who I'm talking about.
Is Corey Bajorquez a free agent? He's another guy that I really like.
He is.
I think he pins like 3 or 4 punts inside of the 5 against us in the Week 18 game, if I remember correctly. So that might have just been a really good game, but I like him.
And here's a question for you. And Riley brings up an interesting point, Nick. Is a punter defense or offense?
No.
I think it's both. I mean, like, I don't even know which realm it's more of.
No or yes. It's not one or the other. Special teams.
Yeah,
Its own unit.
it is. Because I mean, it affects both because it could be the offense. I mean, I don't know. I just find it interesting. Any other guys on the defense that you want to drop?
No, I think I've said everybody that I'm interested in here. I'm interested to see who your guy is here on the record guy.
Rick brings in here. He says he's seen a lot of mock drafts showing the Bengals taking a cornerback or safety in rounds 4, 5, and 6. Here's something
perfectly reasonable.
Here's something that wouldn't shock me, Mick. Cornerback in round 1. The draft goes certain ways, which I know you've done a lot of mock drafts. I haven't done as many yet. I usually wait until a couple more weeks to start really diving into all of that. Bengals love first-round corners. They love themselves some first-round corners.
God. Let's see if we can just name all the ones that we probably rattle a good at least 10 since we've ever started watching.
Yeah, Leon Hall, Jonathan Joseph, Dre Kirkpatrick, Darquez Dennard. You know, those are 4 big ones. William Jackson.
The third. Okay, so 5
right there. They love it. And is Cooper DeJean the guy?
I think he projects more to safety or a nickelback, but yeah, I mean, I like Cooper DeJean a lot. He's really good.
Yeah. No, this is not me predicting the Bengals drafting corner, but I don't be surprised if day 1 or day 2 they're drafting a corner.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all, and it all depends on where the draft board falls. I mean, if you have a DeJean available, which honestly he could be your safety, if you don't decide to sign one, he could be your Dax Hill replacement. That would be a good guy available. Nate Wiggins out of Clemson. I really like his tape a lot. Got Terrion Arnold. His measurables are really good. Trying to think. Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. Kool-Aid.
He's been a riser too, hasn't
he?
Yeah,
he's been a riser. It's Kool-Aid McKinstry's stock has gone down for some reason. Quinyon Mitchell's. There's a lot of sites where he's the top rated corner in the class now. Him and Terrion Arnold. So yeah, that's I could see them getting a corner in round 1. I did a mock recently. I did Byron Murphy the second out of Texas to be BJ Hill's replacement.
He to me might be best case scenario.
I'd say Jerzon's probably the best case scenario, but I do like Johnny Newton. That's what he wants to go by, right?
Yes. Don't you dare call him Jerzon. Sorry, Johnny. I know you're watching. We know to call you Johnny.
Yeah, I think Byron Murphy would be a really solid pick as well. So okay, who's your guy? Have you picked your guy that you are?
My prediction
sign tomorrow.
So we're going to say that Mick and I right now are both going to predict one free agent that by this time next week, the Bengals will sign. And how about this? Let's even. How about if one of us gets? So you want to put $5 on it?
Yeah, sure. We'll put some money on this.
Okay, we'll do it $5. So if one of us predicts it, and if we're both right, then it's just a toss. If one of the other is correct, though, we have to owe the other $5. So by the time the show starts next week, a Schefter tweet or, a Rappaport tweet counts. It doesn't have to necessarily be official from the Bengals. It just, that would count for it. This might be a cop-out. Hayden Hurst.
On day 1?
No, I'm not saying this is in the next. So we have a week. So until next Sunday. So this is until the podcast starts next Sunday.
You just made a whole. You just gave me a whole spiel about how DJ Reader's not going to get signed till May because of his quad injury.
Yep. I don't know.
Hayden Hurst is going to get signed.
Yep, there you go.
I'm a guy that might not play football ever again.
He said that he's got a clean bill of health.
Yeah, every player likes to say that so they can get signed.
Well, hey, then maybe you just won $5. So who is your guy that the Bengals will sign by 7:00 Central Time next week?
Michael Onwenu, right tackle out of New England.
Okay. There we go. There you go.
I really hope they get him.
Yeah, and listen, we've got it here. So and if we're both wrong, then obviously it's a toss up. Nobody gets anything. And sorry, comment section, we're not letting you play because Mick and I don't have that much money. If you all get it right,
Yeah,
we are.
Kelly does say he said Nick Fant, but I'm guessing he means
Noah Fant. Yeah, and listen, that one wouldn't shock me. If it's Noah Fant,
let's see if Riley will comment to see who his guy is.
Yeah, Riley, you're not in on this bet, but if you have a,
I mean, I'll be on this bet with Riley.
Okay, there you go. So if Riley agrees to you with Mick, Riley can drop in there and do it. While he types up his guess, remember to follow us on all of our social media channels. 1 week from today, I mean, we could be talking about multiple free agency signings. We could be talking about none. We could be talking about one. I have no idea.
What do you think is more likely, talking about multiple or talking about none?
How about this? 1.5 or 2.5 outside free agents over under by this time next week.
I'm going to go under.
What if I would have said it at 1.5?
I think it's right at 2. I think it'll be probably 2 guys.
2. Riley says Wilkins.
Wilkins. Okay, Riley, you're on this bet. If it's Michael Onwenu, I win. If it's Christian Wilkins, you win. If it's Hayden Hurst, which I would say it's not at all. I think that is a terrible pick, Sam. Sam wins.
I'm just saying. It might happen. It might happen. I don't know. But follow us on all of our social media channels. Go on to our podcast platform. We're on there on Spotify. We're on iTunes. We're on iHeartRadio. We're on all of them. Jungle Juice is the podcast name. Any parting thoughts, Mick, as we enter into free agency? Appreciate you joining in, Rick, as always.
Thanks for commenting, Rick. No parting thoughts at all. Have a good week. And hopefully we feel good about whoever they sign, or if they don't. I wouldn't be too mad if they didn't sign anybody. Just going to throw that out there.
Interesting. I think a lot of it depends on what happens, on how slow things go and everything. But I'm interested to see as to what will happen. I like free agency. I already know that Wednesday I'm probably not going to get any work done because I'm just going to be sitting there on Twitter refreshing.
Well, so are we not going to get any news of signings tomorrow? If the tampering period
maybe you'll get some tampering. That'll happen.
Well, I think are players allowed to verbally accept deals, or don't deals get leaked during the tampering window anyways?
See, I can never remember legal tampering period. What is legal tampering? Allows teams to start negotiations without repercussions. The legal tampering begins Monday at noon Eastern. Deals can be yes. Okay, so we are going to get some tomorrow. So this is when deals are. So it could. I mean, we could theoretically have
early for you. There you go.
There it is. So I mean, by this time tomorrow, we could have it. Kevin Byard is already going to Chicago. Riley says. So apparently they've done some illegal tampering then.
Well,
wow.
They should get the same treatment the Dolphins did. They're gonna have to give up. They're gonna have to give up number 1 overall. It's gonna be forfeited.
Poor Leroy.
Williams
actually,
going to Washington.
Leroy might actually like that because then he doesn't have to have Caleb Williams as starting quarterback.
Is he not? Is he not a big Caleb Williams guy?
No, he's not. No, he's not. Thanks for listening to our podcast, by the way. We've talked a lot about that. Appreciate it. We'll see you next week for edition of Jungle Juice, and we look forward to it, talking about some free agency signings. Mick, we'll wrap it up with a little Who Dey.
Who Dey. Thanks for watching, guys.